like to invite Mr. Bikendra Thapa. He's a management consultant with over 15 years of experience in forming and executing business and HR strategies. He worked with small and large companies in Nepal, India, Germany, Thailand, Singapore, Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, Egypt, the UAE, and Australia. These includes Mercedes-Benz, Nepal Investment Bank, Shell, and HR Act. He has completed MBA degree from AIT. He was the valedictorian and was awarded the AIT Alumni Award for being most outstanding student at the School of Management during the graduation ceremony in May 2011. He's also a certified practitioner, HR from Australian HR Institute. He has been awarded the Australian Postgraduate Award to pursue PhD at University of Western Australia. He has been working remotely for more than 3 years, advising SMEs in strategy formulation, strategy execution, performance management, digitization, and project management. So now let's welcome Mr. Bikendra Thapa.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction, Shreya. It's a pleasure always to go back and talk to people from my alma mater, which has given all of us quite a lot. Before I begin, I have quite a few familiar faces who have attended despite their busy schedules. Like I know Tejeshwar, Karmadai, Sanjeev, and many others, right? So, and thank you very much to you and Asim for making this happen as well. So let's begin. I have a very short session where we're going to talk of a bit of history about remote working. What is it? And what are the benefits it offers? And most importantly, some of the key challenges remote working offers to both employees and leaders of the organizations worldwide. The topic itself is very apt because like all of us, many or probably majority of employees worldwide, irrespective of countries, are working from home at this moment in time. For many, like us in Australia, the situations are being returning to normalcy. So many are going back to office, right? But many, like in my country, Nepal, it's still in lockdown. So many are working from home. So I hope I can give you some information to help you sail through the key challenges of remote working. So let's begin. I hope you all can see my screen, right?
We can see clearly.
Yep. So in the first section, we will have a brief introduction of the concept, and I'll go back to the history to present some of the key data. So remote working, once an innovative strategy mostly practiced by technology companies, has become now a global mainstream phenomenon. The International Workplace Survey of 2019 found that not only more than 50% of the workers globally regularly spend half the week or more outside their main office locations, but 3 out of 4 consider flexible working to be the new normal. Likewise, Merchant Savvy Survey of 2020, before this pandemic happened, found that people working from home and remote locations globally has grown 159% since 2005, right? But this coronavirus pandemic has now jolted the entire world. I think at a personal level, we are all concerned about health and safety. And in our professional lives, it has forced us to reinvent how we work, where we work, and when we work. And as a solution of this dilemma, remote working offers a viable solution. So what is remote working? Before we delve into the definition, let us look into its predecessor, I would say, traditional working concept, right? Traditionally, what is work? Traditionally, work is about going to an office and coming back from the office. That means it is attached to a particular location for a certain period of time and to do a certain job tasks. It's structured around employees gather in a central office location and allow supervisors and managers to coordinate activities and spread internal communication. I was reading an article, and it was by Jay Mulkey and colleagues, published in the MIT Sloan Management Review in 2009. And they argued that traditional work arrangement enables, actually, sharing of social experience, interpersonal coordination, modeling of work behaviors, and giving and seeking advice. However, this traditional work environment has undertaken a paradigm shift due to the advancement of communication technology. So now, remote working is a work arrangement in which people do their regular work, but not at their usual office location, somewhere away from that location, helped by information technology. It is based on the concept that work does not need to be done on a specific place to be accomplished successfully, right? And there is a whole continuum of remote working. It refers to employment configurations along a continuum that ranges from occasional telecommuting to hoteling or to working from home. And these remote workers can be full-time employees of an organization or employees working partially from office and the rest from home, or moonlight workers, contractors, or freelancers. In the next section, we're going to talk a bit of a history. So how did remote working evolve? Because I think we need to know about the history to plan our work ahead, right? So sparked by the oil crisis, remote working was first introduced in United States public domain in the 1970s. It's thought to have coined in 1973 by a man called Jack Niels, who was working as an engineer on projects for National Aeronautics and Space Administration. The idea at that time was to move the work to workers rather than move the workers to work in order to minimize traffic congestion. So think of now commuting here. But then it was adopted by big corporations like Control Data Corporations and IBM, who began exploring these arrangements for computer programmers. So these programmers used early personal computers to design products, build codes, write and edit from their homes. And in the 1990s, what happened was, as people were experimenting working from home, they started selling items on eBay, or sharing work using ELANs, or freelancing using their own personal computers. Then came the era from 2000 to 2012, where the economy worldwide shifted mostly from manufacturing to information, technology-based, right? So in this time, more companies joined this bandwagon, and they offered employees, working virtually, basically. And then what happened? Then the SARS thing happened in 2003. 9/11 happened, and all these also gave momentum to this phenomenon of remote working. And then again, it got popularity amongst employers. However, there was an issue appearing to employers. Now, how are you going to monitor performance of these workers? And are remote workers going to be as efficient or as productive as usual office goers? So there's a book by I think the #1 authority on the future of work, Professor Linda Grayton at the London Business School, right? It's called The Shift. Here, Professor Grayton argues that British Telecom thought the same problem would happen, and they experimented with remote workers and usually workers working at office, and wanted to test the productivity. So what they found was, initially, remote workers lagged in productivity behind the traditional workers. But as they were taught to use technology and collaborate, the productivity rose and became at par with remote workers, and occasionally it even surpassed them. So the essence here is, remote workers need to be taught how to use appropriate technology and provide skills to collaborate with other remote workers. So 2 key lessons from this episode. So then what happened around 2012, 2013, the cost of collaborative tools, video costs, started falling. People also learned to divide and distribute tasks in a remote environment. This led to more organizations joining the movement. But now another problem came, again, which is also very important on how we go ahead. As people were joining this bandwagon, they also started feeling lonely because there was not much, people were missing the social interactions that's happening at the work. And this gave rise to another phenomenon, the co-working spaces. I mean, we can see in towns and cities worldwide. So these co-working spaces offered remote employees the benefit of not going to the office, but also the opportunity to intermingle in a larger group of remote workers. So sense of belonging in a community. So then what happened was this was then going up, communication costs started falling, and people joined the movement. But this year what happened? And all these, there were two things happening. One was companies were doing this for certain workers, or employees were voluntarily seeking to work remotely part-time, or like me, trying to be a freelancer. But now in 2020, with this COVID-19 pandemic, it's no more an option. Now, freelancers are not father of a 4-year-old like myself, or a freelancer or an independent consultant. They are everyone everywhere, like you all. I'm sure all of you are also working from home, experiencing new challenges as you embark on this journey. Having all said that, from these lessons, what we learned that there are 3 key elements of remote working. First is technology. So from history, what we learned, you need to experiment with technology. You need to try different things, but importantly, align technology with the task at hand, right? Number 2, you need to make your workplace humane. Like I said, people were feeling lonely, so they wanted some social connections. So these gave birth to virtual co-working spaces. So that means in this time of a crisis, you need to invent ways as leaders and managers or individuals and employees. You need to develop ways to make your virtual workplace human. And the third is development of rituals and rhythms. Like we can go back to history. The early freelancers, like I said, in the 90s, they had a dedicated workspace, probably in their garage in the United States. And they shut their doors, they worked for certain hours, and they maintained regularity. They maintained routines and rituals. And I think that's another key element to make remote working succeed in any environment. And having said this, so remote working now is a global phenomenon. Why? Because it's a win-win situation for both employers and employees. There have been research which says employees get a lot of flexibility, reduction in transportation cost, higher job satisfaction, productivity, and etc. In fact, there's a study. The OWL Lab State of Remote Work 2019 survey revealed that remote workers are happy in their jobs 29% more than on-site workers. Likewise, for employers, productivity is a huge thing that employees are cashing on. I mean, the IWG survey of 2019 said that productivity has gone up post-implementation of flexible working in that cohort of survey samples. And the most important thing why companies will go for this is to build and retain and engage talent. For now, many job seekers, remote working is a key differentiator when faced with choices of a similar job. When the talent market will be tight, if you want to hire a talent, you need to offer them flexible working. A survey in 2019 showed that 4 out of 5 respondents stated that given 2 similar job offers, they would turn down the one that didn't offer them flexible working. And another huge benefit for employers is probably the reduction in rental cost. If you have to maintain small office, you save money, right? But despite all these benefits, it's not all roses and unicorns. So in this section, we are going to talk of key challenges. There are a lot of surveys that have come out, right? There are a lot of surveys, and this is one of them. It is done by Buffer and Engelist, State of Remote Work 2020 survey. So it's done, I think, in more than 20 countries. And these are the top challenges that remote workers face. But all these surveys are done before the COVID-19 pandemic. And through my readings of the top tier journals and surveys, and I'm consulting people, and I'm consulting remote companies and employees, their interaction with them, and through my own experience of remote working, I have picked 5 challenges of remote working, which I think are crucial. Now I would ask to launch a survey to see what do you think we can talk about today, because I think our time is limited. We can only focus on 1 or 2 maximum. So there are 5 key challenges we are going to, I think we can talk about, but we'll have to pick 1 or 2. So Asim, can you please launch a survey and see how people respond to that?
Yeah, so everyone can see the polling, right?
Yes.
Yep. So let's give 1 minute to the survey. %50 of the participants have voted. Yeah, more votes coming.
Vote. Yeah, please vote. Yeah.
$20 more seconds, Bikendra. Then.
Yep.
Okay.
We'll wait. Yeah, only 72% have voted. Let's probably wait. Let's see.
Yeah.
Please
let's
vote.
wait, let's wait for that 100%.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so I will end the poll. Okay, 2 minutes. 82. So can we see the results?
Yes.
Yeah.
So everyone wants to hear about work overload, right?
Yeah, I think so. 38%. Yeah.
Yes. So if we have time, we'll go into anxiety and then loneliness. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think this also made this session a bit more humane, right? Everybody did some work. That's what I wanted. So now let's talk of work overload. One of the reasons many organizations don't approve of remote work is the fear that employees will slack off without that physical in-person oversight. But in reality, the opposite tends to be true. Remote workers are more likely to overwork, right? And there are number of research that have proved that. People working remotely often feel more grateful to their employers for allowing them to adopt this working style. That feeling of gratitude can lead some remote employees to keep their foot on the gas until they run out of fuel. Such individuals feel they have to show extra effort in order to return the benefit to the employer. When does the workday end? Afternoons will blend with evenings. Weekdays will blend with weekends, and little sense of time off will remain. Drawing boundaries between work and home is tough, even though it's important for our mental health and well-being. Many times, employees send work-related communication outside office hours, making it difficult to maintain boundaries even for the supervisors. Other times, the manager, leader, or the employer intensifies the workload with requests that cannot be accomplished within certain time frame. COVID-19 might amplify these pressures, even for employees who have a natural preference to separate their work and personal life. The current circumstances may not allow them to do so. A 2019 survey by Cloud's infrastructure company found that 82% of remote tech workers in the United States felt work overload or burnt out, reporting that they work longer hours than those in the office, and 40% feeling as though they needed much to contribute more than the in-office colleagues. And this is, I think, a common phenomenon across the world. So how can you beat that? Here, there was one journal article that came into my mind, and I'm quoting it. It's called An Earl in a Day's Work, Boundaries and Micro-Role Transitions, written by Ashworth, Craner, and Fugate in the year 2000. So they described ways in which people distinguish the transition from work to non-work roles via boundary crossing activities. So what are these boundary crossing activities? They are putting on your work clothes, commuting from work home to work. So these are physical and social indicators that something has changed. So these give messages to your brain that you have transitioned from home you to work you, right? So getting ready. So this is how you can beat it. And now recently, Gurge and Bones in the Harvard Business Review article recommended that we need to maintain these physical and social boundaries while working remotely. These boundaries between our personal and work roles are really important. And like I said before, you can do this simply by getting ready for work. Or, I mean, if you take a commute and if you are now homebound, take a walk in the garden if you can. Otherwise, just take a walk in the apartment. So this will give a message to your brain that something, you're changing it. You're changing the setting. So it makes you ready, right? And have a designated workspace. I mean, it could be a corner in your living room or an home office if you have, a breakfast nook in the kitchen, but don't work in the bedroom if possible. And then another thing is you also need to have temporal boundaries. Like I said, ideally, we want to please the employer and the manager, send emails after and before work hours. And the managers will also send us those kind of requests. It's difficult, but to prevent that, be clear how you're going to maintain your time boundaries. They need to find time slot budgets that functions best for them. And you need to be conscious and respectful that others will have different time zones, different times that they are productive or they're focused on, right? So you need to coordinate your time with your managers and team and maintain a work schedule as much as possible once agreed. So don't divert, agree upon and then maintain. Now, it's also important that remote workers make commitments that force them to end work on time. Now, for example, take my dog for a walk at 5 p.m. or have a tea with my family at 4:30 or 3, I don't know. So what works? Or go for a grocery shopping if it's allowed now. So this will help you to mentally disconnect from work and properly recharge yourself for the next day, right? You need to come out of that environment where you're working. So again, maintaining social, physical, and temporal boundaries, both while going to work and coming back, is really important. The next is, there are some estimates that the average knowledge worker, like all of us, are productive only about average of 3 hours per day. And these hours should be free of interruptions. So get a dedicated time slots and eat the frog during that time, right? So do some important topics, or you can use Eisenhower matrix if you've heard of it. It will help you to focus what you want to do now, or just got to do one big thing 3 medium things, and 5 small things, the 1-3-5 rule. So likewise, now we can talk about this whole day, but to cut short, so these are some simple techniques. So maintaining these boundaries and adhering to the routines and rituals, right? So similarly now, how can leaders help that? So employees can try to do that, but how can leaders help those employees? One is leaders need to be empathetic. Leaders need to be empathetic about these employees' personal lives and priorities, their work-life balance and professional development. So how can you show empathy in these times? Walk the talk. Leaders should have their own boundaries, right? So they can set up a routine for, let's say, I won't be available after 5 p.m. or 4 p.m. or 3 p.m. I don't know. So if you as a leader take proactive steps to show empathy, and others will follow the suit. And another easiest way to do it, like you cut down the low value activities. And if you can group certain activities together, do that. Like instead of asking for a meeting every time, one simple mantra one could adopt is no meeting without any agenda, right? So, and another one is like, again, with loneliness and other issues coupled, employees will have trouble expressing their feelings and thinking to their co-workers at this time. So what they can allow is allow for social collaborations to happen. Leaders can help build collaborative platforms and introduce systems where remote employees can talk to each other, vent their ideas, brainstorm, and come up with certain solutions. So we have how many minutes left actually? Sorry, Shreya. Are we on time?
We have 7 more minutes.
Okay, perfect. So great. Then, so that means, so these are some simple tips that we can undertake as employees and leaders to counter work overload. And of course, I can tell you 100 different things, right? But the important thing also is each individual circumstances is different. So there is no one size fits approach, right? And like I say, ultimately, we need to be inventive and adaptive in how we respond to challenges of remote working. However, the 3 key elements, like I mentioned, making technology suit to your task at hand, make your workplace humane through social interactions, even virtually, right? And engage in rituals and rhythms by making distinctions of these boundary crossing activities, by maintaining social, physical, and temporal boundaries, can give you certain solutions. And I think the employees and leaders in the organizations should brainstorm and collaborate to find ways that fits your particular situation and make it work in the end. And thank you very much. So yeah, there are so many other things, and I think one briefly that I want to also touch upon is one challenge: interruptions at home. Because I was talking to a client of mine in Singapore, right? So in Singapore, like like in any metropolis, the apartments are quite small. Employees are living in a very, let's say, not a luxurious space, right? So here, people are experiencing very unusual circumstances. Like parents are there at home, they're working parents, and they have small kids. So how are they going to adjust to this extraordinary moment? Particularly for myself here as well, right? So I'm working from home, always as remotely. So my wife has been at home for about 2 months now. So, and yeah, she's a dentist. Her clinic is closed, but she's also engaging in a lot of professional development activities now. So both of us need to be on the computer. There are lots of webinars happening like this everywhere in the world. Now the numbers are a bit down. So you need, so this is another challenge, and I think this is one of the greatest challenges of adjusting at this new normal home environment, particularly when you are a working parent with kid, is another key issue that leaders and employees need to engage in a dialogue and come up into a solution, right? So yeah, so there are a lot of things we can talk about, but unfortunately we don't have much time. And thank you very much to my alma mater, to the AIT Alumni Association, to Shreya, to Asim, to Sanjeev, to Karmadai, and everyone for this opportunity. So there's a lot more we can talk about, and I have blogs about it or posts about it. So I'm in Instagram, I'm in LinkedIn, and please, I'll be happy if you guys can connect and provide me feedbacks on how we can go, any suggestions about this. And the next issue now, briefly. So Sanjeev initially mentioned this, the drive that AIT is going on, where each alumni can contribute something to the alma mater, right? So times are tough. Everywhere situation is gloomy. Economy is in tailspin for many of the countries. But if you reflect back and think, probably many of us are not that bad as others are in this world, right? So what I said, what I thought now is, if you want to know more about how you can navigate all these challenges, like we have 5 of them, and we have some handy tips, you can access my online course at this location, right? It's in Thinkific. It's called Tackle Remote Working Challenges. It's a launch price for AIT alumni. It's for $9.99 USD. If you buy it within 2 days, I'll increase the price on Monday. 50% of the proceeds will go to AIT. So I think that's what I can do now. If with the support of the other alumni and students, we can at least make a little bit change in our institution, from where we've got so much. So if I'd be more than happy to take you in this journey. It's about a 1-hour course. We have 5 different challenges, different recommendations, and there is a free ebook you will get. So yes, if you enroll it in the next 2 days, from Monday morning, the price will be different. So if you guys enroll, 50% of the proceeds will go into AIT. And I thank you very much for this opportunity and look forward for some interactions now.